Have you given any thought to how young people will shape the future of philanthropy? Good evening and welcome. I am Vivian Oden, Vice President for Equity and Inclusion at the Hampton Roads Community Foundation. Thank you for joining us as we celebrate Black philanthropy and its impact on the Hampton Roads community and beyond. This year marks the Community Foundation's 5th annual Black Philanthropy Month celebration, which is a milestone, and it's in person after 2 years of virtual celebration because of COVID. We remain committed to convening discussions around topics that encourage diversity and inclusion in our region. Tonight, our esteemed panelists will share insight on the power of the young voice in Black philanthropy, and together, we will explore diversity in giving patterns among millennials and their unique perspectives on philanthropy. Last year, we worked closely with New England Blacks in Philanthropy to learn more about the history of Black donors who joined forces to support their own neighborhoods, schools, nonprofit organizations, and churches. We heard about many unique attributes of Black philanthropy, such as the collective giving power, efforts to achieve transformational change, and the unwavering determination to provide a better life for their families. Giving Black Hampton Roads is part of our larger commitment to racial equity. We are thankful to have worked with an amazing advisory council of Black community leaders throughout the process, receive support from W.K. Kellogg Foundation, and to have participation from you in completing the survey and being involved in interviews and focus groups. If you have not read the report, please go to our website at hamptonroadscf.org. That's hamptonroadscf.org to view the full report. I want to acknowledge our board member, Lemuel Lewis, who you will hear from later on in the program, and our board members tuning in virtually. We have a few elected and appointed officials here this evening. The Honorable Jamila LaCruz, who is a judge with the Norfolk General District Court. The Honorable Danica Royster with the Norfolk City Council. I saw her earlier. And U.S. Congressman Bobby Scott. Thank you for joining us. And I apologize if I overlooked anyone. I try to get to everyone, so I do apologize. If you are tuning in online, we would love to see your pictures, comments, and your philanthropy stories during the discussion. Make sure you use the hashtag Black Philanthropy Month 22. That's hashtag Black Philanthropy Month 22. Now I want to introduce our moderator for the evening, Aaliyah Slappy Wilson. Ms. Wilson is the City of Norfolk's first Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. In this role, she is driving Norfolk's efforts to dismantle structural barriers and create true access and opportunity for residents and business owners. The department is designed to advance equity in Norfolk through institutional strategies and external programming, with a focus on creating economic opportunity. Aaliyah was named a 2021 Inside Business Top 40 Under 40. Let's welcome at this time, Aaliyah Slappy Wilson.
Thank you so much, Vivian, and thank you for your leadership and your commitment at the Hampton Roads Community Foundation to advancing equity and really making sure that racial equity is at the center of the work. So as Vivian mentioned, my name is Aaliyah Slappy Wilson, your moderator for the evening. And I want to thank you so much for joining us for today's conversation and for helping us celebrate the richness of Black philanthropy in Hampton Roads. Tonight we have a distinguished panel of people doing great work in the community. We will chat with Jasmine Crow Houston, she's newly married, founder and CEO of Gooder, along with 2 local panelists, Kendra Robinson and Randy Williams, president of Tally & Twine Watch Company. Yes, let's give it up for our panelists, yes. Excellent. We all need supporters in the audience, right? They both are members of the Giving Circle, Visionaries for Change, at the Hampton Roads Community Foundation. And Visions for Change was founded in 2019 by Black business and civic leaders to support charitable causes in the Black community. And again, if you are joining us virtually, we encourage you to share your thoughts. Please, everyone pull out your phone. We want you to be sharing everything that you're hearing tonight using that hashtag, hashtag Black Philanthropy Month 22. Black Philanthropy Month 22. Our first guest is Jasmine Crow Houston. She is an award-winning social entrepreneur, children's book author, TED speaker, and a determined leader working to make the world a better place, one cause at a time. She has been featured on CNBC, Oprah Magazine, Forbes, Fast Co., New York Times, and named by Entrepreneur Magazine as one of the top 100 influential female founders. I would like to welcome Ms. Crow Houston to join me on the stage at this time. Let's give her a hand as she comes. Hello, Ms. Crow Houston.
It sounds so interesting hearing that. Now I'm very newly married. But how are you doing?
Doing wonderful. Can you tell us how newly married, just to give some context for folks?
About 10 days.
10 days. Yeah. Can we give her a hand? Yes.
So very newly.
Excellent, excellent. So Ms. Crow Houston, Mrs. Crow Houston, let's start by you just sharing, what was your introduction into philanthropy?
Yeah, I started a company called Black Celebrity Giving back in 2010. And my first introduction, I always talk about, I was volunteering with an organization called the Once a Month Homeless Church. And it was a church in the park, and it was specifically for people that were experiencing homelessness. And one of the things that really shook me that day was when we were setting up the tables, just, everyone was setting up tables, we're getting everything ready, and then when it was time to serve, a lot of the people that I thought were volunteers like me got on the other side of the table to be served, and it really just made me think we are all so deeply connected in that in this moment I couldn't even tell us apart. I'm thinking we're all volunteers, and that was really like the first kind of introduction that got me going. Now, prior to that, I did PRs for several NBA teams, and then working with a lot of NBA and NFL basketball and football players starting their football camps, so kind of getting them started in the nonprofit realm. But I really look at that day as the day that I was like, this is what I'm going to do for forever.
Wow, yeah. That's awesome. So thinking back to when you were much younger, right? Was there any moment growing up where you can say, you know what, that was a time when I might have been first introduced to philanthropy or giving back or serving communities?
Oh, yeah. My parents were avid givers. My mom sat on so many boards. Wow. I remember her doing this 3-day breast cancer walk and like raising all this money because breast cancer had affected a lot of women in my family, including one of her sisters. My dad was a mentor with Big Brothers, and I remember specifically like feeling like a lot of those boys were my brothers. He never had any sons, but he just, would get these young kids who didn't have a father in the home. And what's really great is years later, and we're talking, not aging myself, but we're talking maybe 30 years later, one of those boys reached out to my dad, found him on Facebook, and said, because of you, I'm a teacher, and, you really changed my life. And so he still talks to these kids that he mentored in Wichita Falls, Texas. I'm a military brat. And so when he was in the Air Force, and we would get stationed in different places, but my parents would find giving as a way to get into that community. So we would go to church, because no matter where we moved, we always went to the new church, and then they would start giving and getting involved in the communities. So very early on.
So tell us a little bit, and I think that's a really important piece, right? Connecting the dots for our younger generation. So as you're thinking about those young people who you're charged with serving and supporting, thinking about how do you introduce them to philanthropy early, yeah, right? Because it doesn't just start when we're adults, it starts by someone planting that seed and it being watered throughout our lifetime, yes, right? So can you talk to us a little bit about the intersection of business and philanthropy. Because a lot of folks think that you either have to be successful as a for-profit or you help people, right? And no, not many folks recognize the intersection where they collide and where transformation can happen, not just for the entrepreneur or the social entrepreneur, but for everybody they're called to serve. So can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, for me, I had been in the nonprofit space for about a decade before I started Gooder. And what really struck me is that businesses were already paying to throw perfectly good food away. And so I started a homeless feeding initiative, and I just say a feeding initiative for people experiencing homelessness, because I don't think it's something that people stay in. But I started cooking out of my house in about 2013, and I was making these really elaborate meals, and I was calling them the Sunday Soul Pop-Up Restaurant. I would take them to other cities like DC and Baltimore and Charlotte, New Orleans, but primarily we were in Atlanta every week. And a video of my work actually went viral on Facebook, and I woke up one morning, which is not the funnest thing. It was kind of crazy. So I woke up one morning to just all these friend requests and comments and 6 million views of this 15-second little video. And this is back in the day when Instagram didn't have like reels and all this. So it was like a 15-second little slideshow. You guys remember we used to use the layout apps and put all of our pictures in one picture.
all remember,
Yeah,
right?
so it was one of those things. And it had went viral. And one of the reoccurring questions that people kept asking me was, who donated the food? And the truth was nobody. I was couponing, I was price matching, I was taking $5 and $10 donations, getting really good with making pasta and chicken because they were affordable back then. This is before chicken wings were $30 a pack now. But back in the day, I used to be able to make all this food and feed about 300 to 500 people every week. And so I started thinking, I need to get this food donated. And so I went down this rabbit hole, like what happens to extra food at the end of the night, and saw food waste and was just blown away with how much perfectly good food goes to waste in this country. And we're talking $218 billion this country spends on food we never eat. And there are people I know all around here that are going hungry because this is in every community. And so when I saw food waste, the biggest thing that stood out to me is that they were paying a waste company to throw it away. And so for me, that was really the pivotal moment that made me say, okay, I'm gonna start a company to solve this, but I don't want to make it a nonprofit because they're already paying a waste company to take this perfectly good food and throw it away. And what I'm gonna do is come and offer a sustainable solution to keep the food out of landfill, which is better for our environment, but also get perfectly good food to people in need and make sure that we're trying to end hunger. And so that was really that intersection there. So I saw that the problem I was trying to solve was already being a massive business. Like none of us will ever say, we don't want to, we'll just keep our trash. Like, you want your trash picked up. Waste doesn't go anywhere. It's a $1 trillion industry, mainly controlled by men, mainly controlled by white men. And I decided that I was going to get into this industry and try and solve it, try and solve food waste. So that's how it really happened. I saw that it was being paid for and said they could pay me to do good. Yeah.
Yes, that definitely deserves a hand. And so I see some familiar faces in the audience of folks who have come out of their own pockets with their own nonprofits or their own businesses, right? Funding their dream. And so can you speak to a little bit of that journey that you were on, going from making those elaborate meals, right, to the realization that, hey, there's a business model that could be tied to food sustainability. And so can you talk to a little bit of that? Because I think that could be helpful for our audience.
Yeah, when I still mentor a lot of nonprofits, I always still think, what is it that people are paying for in your service? So, one of my mentors, she has a program called 3D Girls, and she's helping, young women, specifically she works with teen moms. And I always think, well, what does it cost you to service them? And that's what you're selling, right? So if it costs you, you're running a program every weekend and it costs you $60, someone for $65 could sponsor one participant for this program. And so a lot of times I think the nonprofit model is like, let's just take the donations as they come in. But I always like to challenge them to get the money to actually operate the program and really understand the business model there. And so for me, when I was feeding people, and I struggled for, the first, we just raised $8 million in June. So I would say I struggled for the first 5 years of the company.
But $8 million, let's be
to
clear.
make it happen. And we really started to make money in 2020, and that's when I went and raised additional money. But I was always figuring out, like, how can I bootstrap? And for me, that meant, which I know a lot of nonprofits can understand this, it meant doing more often with less. And so I didn't have a big team. We didn't have a big office. And it was really hard for me to compete with, like, the Googles and the Facebooks of the world that had these great offices. And, now they're like remote work and people could work from anywhere. So it was really about trying to find people that cared about this problem as much as I did. And it's one of the reasons why everyone that interviews with Gooder, what's your hunger story? And we all have one. And they're great to hear. And one of my team members, her dad was a doctor, but she talked about him being in medical school and having a BP gas card, and that they only ate what they could buy in the BP for 7 years. While he did his residency. So she said her hunger story was having ate far too many hot dogs, and not being able to have access to fresh fruits and vegetables and wanting to change that. So there's a lot of struggles, even as a social entrepreneur, because my struggle is people will say, oh, you should be a nonprofit. And we'll say, I thought about that. I've done a lot of work in the nonprofit space, and it's a real reason why we're doing it this way. We're systematically solving hunger, but the struggles remained. When I was fundraising early, trying to get Gooder going for about the first 2 years, I took probably 300 meetings. I think about 218 to be exact, but some of them multiple times, meeting with the same different funds. And people would say things like, oh, well, hunger is already being solved. And I would say, people are going to go to bed hungry tonight. Like, this is not, like, if I came to you and said, I've got a cure for cancer, you're not going to tell me, oh, someone's already working on that. Like, it's not solved yet, but that's the struggle that I had. So it was being unique and trying to have conversations with foundations, and also being able to reframe the conversation. I think there are different ways that I have to describe our business depending on who the audience is to be able to get over the threshold. But funding will always be a struggle. I don't think it'll ever be easy. And so I continue to pray about it.
But that $8 million that you mentioned, yeah. Can we focus there?
Yeah, it helped.
But I want to highlight something that you said, because I think it's important for everyone in this audience to think about, what is your hunger story? Because I think as we think beyond whatever lane we exist in to serve the community, I think hunger is a foundational piece, right? When we think about someone's basic needs being met. And so going back to that hashtag, Black Philanthropy Month 2020, I encourage folks, share your hunger story. Hashtag tonight, hashtag Gooder, so that we connect the dots, so that we can share even where we've been or what we've experienced, right, on this journey.
And what you've seen. I think that's the other thing, too. I've seen families struggle and kids struggle and seniors that were getting $16 a month in food stamps. And I've gotten those calls and went and helped seniors go grocery shopping. I adopted 2 seniors, and I had them literally for like 7 years. Sadly, they passed last year and in 2020, given the pandemic, but they were struggling. And a lot of times people will say, well, like, where are their kids? And I was like, they didn't have kids. Like, the assumption that we often put on people, just because they're a senior citizen doesn't mean they had children. Right. And doesn't mean that they have struggles. And so I always try to just find small ways to give, even when I didn't have a lot. And so by sending, when DoorDash and Uber Eats and all that stuff came together, I used to send Miss Bailey like Red Lobster, and she would be just so like, she used to think I was the greatest person. And what was so great is that she would eat off of that. She was a little tiny old thing, and she would eat off of that for 2 days. So just the ability of me being able, it's the bread, it's the salad, it's the veg, so those were the small things that kind of inspired me along the journey. So a lot of times it's not even what you've been through, but sometimes what you've witnessed that will shake you to your core too.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, thank you for sharing that. So I want to share with everyone that you have written a children's book, Everybody Eats. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to go down the journey of writing a children's book?
Yeah, I am often asked, will you solve hunger in your lifetime? And this is a problem that affects 1 in 8 people on the planet. And so I have to be really honest. We're only working in the U.S. right now, and we're not even working everywhere. We're working in about 26 cities. And I don't know if I will, but when I see a statistic that says 1 in 6 kids in this country go to bed hungry, and for Black and brown children, we're talking 1 in 3, the reality is your kid can be in school with another child that's going hungry, whether you know it or not. So it's an important conversation to have. And this is really a character building book. It's about a young girl who's volunteering with her parents at a food bank and sees her friend there to get food. And instead of, like bullying her or anything, she's thinking and racking her brain, like, how can I help my friend? Why doesn't she have food? And she goes on this journey to try and get food, good quality food donated so that people like her friend don't go hungry. And it's really just, my goal is that maybe a kid will decide they want to fight hunger too and kind of carry the torch. And it's actually being in a lot of schools now. A lot of schools are picking it up, so it's starting to become a character education book. Shelby County in Memphis, Tennessee, which is a very impoverished community, the entire elementary school district has the book now, so it'll be taught, and just really excited. So hopefully it'll continue to grow and more people will learn that everybody deserves to eat.
Yes, everybody does deserve to eat. And I really appreciate the character piece of that, right?
Yeah.
Because when we think about
Empathy and
that piece, and when we think about everyone not having the same opportunities and the same access, and what role can we play to create some of that access? Can we give a hand to Mrs. Jasmine Crow Houston? And so we're not done. We're just getting started. But at this time, I'd like to expand our conversation to include 2 local philanthropists, Ms. Kendra Robinson and Mr. Randy Williams. I want to invite them to join us for this conversation. Let's give them a hand as they come out. And so for Ms. Kendra Robinson, she serves as the Executive Director for the Community Outreach Coalition. Ms. Robinson, who is also an author, she's the author of the self-help book, The Healthy Boss. It is her desire to help leaders worldwide take care of the 6 forms of health in order to become a healthy boss. And so Mr. Randy Williams, he's a business leader, but he's also a commercial real estate investor, and has devoted his life to philanthropy and community service. Most recently, his company, Tolly and Twine, established a $10,000 business scholarship at Albany State University. Can we give our philanthropist another hand? So Kendra and Randy, I want to ask you guys both the same question that we started with Jasmine, right? So please share with us, what was your journey, and what was your first introduction into philanthropy?
I would say as a child, I was the youngest of my siblings, and my siblings were 10 years apart, so all of us was 10 years apart. And I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. And during her retirement, she would always give back. She was very much a servant leader in her community. So I would find myself going with her to help youth in summer camps and serving senior citizens and going to help people and delivering food and different aspects like that. So even after she passed, I found myself still investing in those service projects that she was engaged in. And once I graduated from high school, that kind of gave me the initiative to start the Community Outreach Coalition.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about the Community Outreach Coalition and the mission?
Yes, the mission is to provide community development service to low-income areas within various communities throughout Hampton Road. So we have a lot of initiatives for academics and young entrepreneurships and social change.
Awesome. So Randy, please tell us about your journey into philanthropy.
For myself, I was raised by my grandmother, and she also introduced me to philanthropy for the first time. First time was through tithing. So my little allowance, she would make me take my 10% up there. I was like, what? And that's something that stuck with me. But as I got older, I realized that her and her friends actually formed this organization called the Volunteer Workers Club. And what they would do is go and deliver plates to I'm like, they're as old as you, Grandma. You're delivering plates to other elderly people. But they did this well into their 80s, man, and that really stuck with me because this is something that you get no glory and honor for. It's about 5 or 6 friends, and they're doing this because of their passion and their desire to help the community. And so it was a really great introduction, and that stuck with me to this day.
Awesome, awesome. And so I want to make sure, does everybody have a note card that you received when you came in? Everybody, hold up your note card. Let's see your note cards. Awesome, perfect. We're seeing the note cards around the room. Please, as you're hearing from our panelists, please jot down your questions. Soon, we want to open up the floor so that we can accept questions from the audience. We have a great list of questions already, but we'd like to hear from you as you're hearing from our panelists. All right, so please start jotting down your questions. So Kendra, as a nonprofit professional, should donors seek out one organization to heavily support, or should donors think about sprinkling their donation around to various organizations? What's your thoughts on that?
I think it depends on the donor's desire for their impact. If they want to have an impact on a specific group in a specific time and see a specific change, maybe they could invest in an organization that will have the capacity to do that in that time frame. However, if you have a broad initiative, like you want to do art education or cultural enrichment or something like that, where there's various organizations doing those things, you can sprinkle your givings out to all of those organizations.
What does someone do if they're not sure what areas they want to impact? And I want to open this up to everyone. Like, how does someone who's thinking about being a philanthropist, they may have grown up or been raised by a grandmother or another family member that they saw early on give of their self and of their time, their talents, and their money, but now they're not really sure, but they know they want to do their part. What advice? How do they identify an area of impact? What do you guys suggest for that?
I would say look for the gaps. Look for the opportunities where people are hurting. If you're scrolling on your timeline and you're like, man, that's a shame, there is something you can do about it. There's usually an organization that's helping them. One thing comes to mind for me that I've really attached to since I've been married, because it was something that my wife brought to light for me, was Black maternal health. This is a world I knew nothing about, but through hearing her stories, I'm like, as a man, this is a tragedy. Everybody should be talking about this. Black women should not be dying just because they want to go to the hospital. Right? So that's something that I'm not attached to directly, but I feel so strongly about it because I recognize that need. So.
Excellent. And thank you for mentioning that and acknowledging that. Anybody else want to build on any of the answers? How does someone identify an impact?
I think you can also build on your passion. If you have a passion in something and you kind of see where, like you said, the gaps are in that area. Maybe, say for instance, there's someone who may not have an opportunity to get a scholarship to do something as far as go to school or be a part of a camp or something that you may have an opportunity to do when you were younger. And it might be someone who's interested in that but cannot financially do that. You may be able to support in that way as well.
Awesome.
And I could say you can date a cause, I think that's the way I would say it, is just try different things out. There's always, different events, whether it's giving circles that you could learn about, whether it's a nonprofit organization that you can volunteer for, it's a church event, but you can try things out and just see really where your heartstrings are pulled the most, and that's really where you'll ultimately end up giving a lot of your time and money.
Awesome. Did you say date a cause?
Yeah, date a cause.
Okay,
yeah.
all right. I hadn't heard that one before. Okay, awesome, thank you. Randy, this question is for you. How is philanthropy and giving back incorporated into your company's business model?
I think, Tally and Twine is really, I think of it as a community organization. It's just a community of people. Actually, our name is an intersection in a real neighborhood. So we were founded with the idea that it's not just you in a silo, but it's about, who you can help and who you can impact through the products and services that you sell. So you mentioned our business scholarship, but also it represents giving opportunities as well, like internships and giving jobs to people as well and helping them gain that experience and that knowledge. And then also from the contractor aspect of highlighting some people that we can work with, other smaller businesses that we can kind of take under our wing and give them their first opportunity to really make some real money. So it's been a great experience. But I think it has to start with the mission and really the soul of the company. Does everybody feel like we're doing something here that actually matters?
Excellent. Excellent. And Randy, I want to stay with you for a moment. You have a 6-year-old daughter, and so everyone up here on the stage has mentioned their early introduction into philanthropy. And so for you and your wife, what steps are you guys taking now to introduce your 6-year-old to philanthropy?
Yeah, that's been a challenge because she's the only child, and she's got a room full of toys. She already has things that we didn't have, like you got a whole playroom, and then you have your own bedroom, right? And so we try to incorporate first, like, this is how you share, right? It's okay to take some of these toys, and we can go and give some of these away to other kids who might not have a toy. Do you realize that that exists? And then I realized that we have to show her more tangible ways as well. So a couple of weeks ago, there's always this boy practicing basketball in the street when I pick her up and drop her off from school. So when I pick her up, we pass by, and she's like, oh, he's playing basketball. So a couple of weeks ago, I stopped, and I gave him a basketball, and I let her see that, and then I talked to her about that and why was that important. So I feel like now she's at the age where she can understand we can do a little bit more of those tangible things and let her see what we're doing, and hopefully that will connect the dots for her.
Awesome, thank you. And I want to open it up to the ladies on the panel as well, because I know, Jasmine, you are a new mom, a newer mom, as am I, and so while we may have children that are 2 or under, at what point do you think that introducing sharing and giving becomes a part of a child's development?
I mean, I was in pop-up grocery stores and building grocery stores at like 9 months. I literally had my kid the next day after an event. So I like to say she was born into giving, and like when she was in her stroller, she was out and at the pop-ups, and now she literally makes produce bags. So she definitely will be putting apples in bags. Now, I don't know if she knows what she's doing or the cause, but she's working. And she's definitely going to be working in this.
She's serving,
She's
right?
serving. She will be working in this often. And I think a lot of it is just, keeping your kid humble. Obviously she's an only kid. She was a pandemic baby, right? And our wedding got pushed back, so we're so happy we finally had it 4 times because there was always a variant right before we were supposed to get married. It wasn't going to happen. But I think it's what we always talk about is it's just going to be so important that even if she has a playroom or she has the things, like at this point, she already has so much more than we ever had when we were kids. I mean, in essence, just the way the world is today, all kids have more than we had when we were kids. And that's something just to think about, whether you talk about technology, just access to information. There are so many things we didn't have. I mean, I was talking about AOL and floppy disk the other day, and I have some of my employees that literally were born in 2001.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, oh my God, you're a kid.
You don't know a cassette tape.
You don't know, you don't remember AOL, so they don't know cassettes or anything. But I think it's just reminding them of the struggles. And I think because we both come from humble beginnings, we've both been essentially broke before. My dad being in the military, unfortunately, not the greatest paying, job. I feel like a lot of our military deserve a lot more, but I remember struggles from my parents. And so I think it's just important to reiterate that. So as she understands, we'll let her know, but I read her the book, and, I have her out and feeding with people and visiting me in the with me in the senior homes, and they love her.
Wow.
And so those are the things that I think as she continues to grow, she'll start to hear and love. And her birthday is the same day as Martin Luther King, so I'm hoping that it seeps in.
Don't mess this up,
I hope it happens.
No pressure, but,
pressure. A lot of pressure.
So much pressure. Awesome. So I have a question for all of the panelists. In what ways can we inspire and engage the next generation of Black philanthropists?
I say to lead by example, showing them exactly what it is you're doing, and talk to them about it. Like, why am I doing this? Tell them about your cause, and then sit down and talk to them about causes that may be dear to them, and help them think about what's going on in school, what's going on in the areas around them, and how they could make an impact, and show them how to give, and then that could build upon something as they grow.
Excellent. And before the rest of you guys answer the question, I just want to take a moment and pause, because I think we use the word philanthropy, and folks may say, well, I'm not a philanthropist, I give, or I volunteer with a local organization, or I'm a member of XYZ group. And so what advice or how do we communicate with folks, especially in the Black community and Black and brown communities who have never thought of themselves as philanthropists? Because historically, they may have thought it was someone with loads of money who could just invest with an organization. So how do we start to change the narrative, even about what philanthropy is and who can be a philanthropist?
I think one of the best things we can do is making it practical for them. So like you said, eliminating the big words that they don't use in everyday language, but just showing them, hey, look, this is something that you care about, and this is how you can help. Now, the thing I like about the younger generation is the fact that they value and expect transparency, and it's very difficult to lie to them. And so, and that's something that we didn't have. Everybody fooled us. You know what I mean? So in the age of information, it's difficult to lie and say, look, all of this money is going directly to the people. No, I can pull it up online and tell how good of an organization you are. And so I think if we're able to show them practically where the money is going, that will lead them, and again, have causes that they care about, and show it how it affects them directly, then I think you can inspire them to give.
Awesome.
And I say even don't think about, hey, it's about giving the most amount of money. It's just about giving of yourself to others to help have a better community and create a better society. So whatever you give, whether it's your time, your talents, or whatever, all of that builds up.
Awesome.
We have a program that we operate every Saturday called Neighborhood Eats, and it's in a Section 8 housing community, and we go in to really try and bridge the gap of weekend meals. And we always have those kids do a service project. And so a lot of times people are like, they are the service project, right? But I'm turning that on the head and making sure the big thing I think in this next generation will be about collaboration over competition. And that's still something I think even in our older generation we've got to learn. Yes. Too often are there 10 nonprofits doing the same thing and they never work together. And a lot of times if they work together, there's a bigger opportunity for funding because now you've got one funder that can hit all 10 of you, but that doesn't happen. So I think trying to get the youth to work on one big project together. So whether that's 10 schools all working towards the same mission, instead of it always having to just be competition, because there shouldn't be competition in giving. I always tell, I'm not in competition with anybody to end hunger. Like, that,
we can all do this work.
Yeah, let's all do the work. Like that is,
Yeah.
I can still think that we're like, the way we go about it is different and better, but I don't look at us being in competition with someone to do it. And I think in a lot of my work with kids lately, I have seen it's just a lot of competition, and it's vanity. It's really, it's upsetting me sometimes to think about it. It's followers and likes and who's more popular and who's this. And so just when you're doing something good, knowing that you can work with someone else to reach that one mission, we've got to really drill that home. Because I even see it in my young kids that we work with. Yeah.
I think that's worth giving a hand for everything that was shared. And so to build on everything you guys said, and going back to that original question, right? So how do we inspire and engage that next generation of Black philanthropists? You guys have mentioned some of it, right? And maybe not just referring to it as philanthropy, but what else? What else should we be doing? Because I know there are a lot of organizations represented here and a lot of folks who work with younger people, right? Just to help them better understand how they can lean into this work right now.
Well, connecting to organizations, knowing that numbers are power. If you get with other people who have the same like-minded mission, whether it's young professionals or whether it's just children trying to get together and make an impact, join forces with people who've already doing so they can show you the way, and then also join people who want to do that same thing. And there are plenty of organizations in this area that are doing great things for philanthropy, so you can join organizations, you can be a part of giving groups, all those type of things.
Awesome. Anyone else want to add anything? Okay, awesome. So now we want to open up the floor to our audience questions. Oh, it looks like we've collected some questions already. All right, so it looks like we're ready to go to ask our first question from the audience. We're going to turn it over to Sarah and Kate for the questions.
Thank you. We got a couple of questions on a similar topic from Rob in Chesapeake, as well as from Patrice from Norfolk. And these questions ask that our panelists address generational differences, and I'll just read one, for example. what are some practical ways to get elders or older generations to be more receptive to the young voice, especially the voice of creatives?
I would hope that they would be respective of it. I do think, I will say, I tweeted this the other day. I do think that there's some lessons that maybe didn't get passed down to this younger generation, and I'll speak about even just how they treat our seniors and our elders. I saw, I was in Martha's Vineyard earlier this week, and there was a lot of older women there, and I definitely saw these young guys just like go out the door hits the lady, she almost falls back, there was no offer of an apology. So I think that's like the first thing I want to turn it on, not just respecting the younger generation and their creative voices, but they've got to respect our elders, because without them, we wouldn't be here. I think if we get that first, because I think, and again, I work really closely with seniors, and they love young people. They love the young, they love it, they love the dances, they love to see the TikTok videos, and they get into that. My grandmother scrolls through Facebook, she comments on everything, she messages everything, she watched, and they got her on TikTok just to watch the little videos of cats doing weird things, but she's got to be respected, and I think that's, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the respect that I think seniors deserve. I think young people are going to get the respect, and because they're going to demand it, as you're saying, but we've got to give the respect to our elders. And once that is done, I think our elders are more than willing to listen to the younger generation, because they know that that's who this earth is going to be left to.
Who they're going to hand it over to. Yeah.
And I also think that everything starts with the conversation. There's so much we can learn about each other if we just have a conversation. My wife teases me about that all the time, because I'll just strike up a conversation with anybody at any time, grocery store or the bank or wherever. And I think once we start the conversation, we realize that we have a lot in common there. And once you find that commonality, now we're no longer strangers. So we can figure out what is it that we want to work on together.
And I was going to say the same thing, having that conversation. People tell me all the time I have an old soul. So I don't mind having conversations with older people, because I like to learn from them, because most of the time they've been in our shoes, just in a different era, in a different way. So if you can gather that information, they're willing to share, gather that information and let them know, hey, I'm going to take this back to my generation. We're going to do it a little different, but we're going to do this same thing.
Awesome. So what I'm hearing is, as we have these conversations, one, it's the respecting of our older generation and acknowledging what they bring to the table, right? And what they
and also what they went through,
and what their
so
their
that
lived
we can
experience.
be in this experiences that we're having now. I think that's so important to talk about.
Oh, definitely. And then that conversation, right? And you only learn that from having a conversation, right? And that's how you dispel some of those myths. That's how you better understand what they've historically gone through and what they've lived through. So.
Me and my sister have been interviewing our grandmothers, because they're 87 and 88. And so every month we talk to them for like an hour and just learn different things, like, about my grandmother's mom and her grandfather, and like just those. So I love the idea of just having conversations, and we're trying to like document that so that it gets passed down to future generations. And we just thought of doing that within the last year, because we're like, they're hitting 90. And, before they can't remember these stories, let's, document them. So the conversation is very important. I love that.
My smile is super huge because, this is a quick sidebar, my graduate thesis was conversations with my grandmother and autoethnography on African-American grandmothers raising grandchildren.
Yes.
And so it's because those stories are so important. And so when we think about oral history, when we think about even giving back to the point of acknowledging what someone has lived through, that's a part of giving back, right? You're giving them a chance to be affirmed and validated for what they lived through. And then sharing that story with your children or whoever it is that you're serving, that's all a part of the work, right? So it's not just your money, it's your time and that investment of even wanting to hear from someone and hear their journey and what they've lived through. So thank you for sharing that. We would like to hear another question from the audience. Kate.
What do each of you want your legacy to look like when it's all said and done?
That was supposed to be my final question, Kate. Thank you. All right. I got to work on a new one. Thank you, Kate. Great question. Oh, awesome. Great question. Great minds think alike.
You're going to make me go first. Yeah. I think the greatest thing anybody can say about me after I'm gone is that I was a servant. That's it. If people say that about me, my job was done. I don't want to hear about how much money I made. I don't want to hear about what I bought. How many people did I help?
Awesome. Yes, that deserves a hand.
I agree. I want people to know that I use my gifts and talents to make an impact on my community, and I try to instill those practices into my nieces and nephews and my younger cousins so that they could use the same thing and use the Community Outreach Coalition as a family initiative to support the community.
Awesome.
You know, that's such a great question. Goodness, I really got to think of. I mean, I always say that, you know, at the end of my life, I will be able to stand before God and say, you know, people were hungry and I fed them, and I really am proud about that. But you know, lately, as we've been opening these free grocery stores inside of schools, like, I really want that to be my legacy now, because I think every Title I school should have a free grocery store in it. And so now we have about 10 that will open across the country this year. We just opened another one last week. And it's just the power of a 12, 13-year-old kid being able to say, like, Mom, I will bring home dinner, and being able to take that on the school bus and go home, because that's, kids understand struggle, you know, whether we think we can't map this, especially now with social media, and they see the glam and the success. It's even more prevalent when they're struggling and when they don't have. And so I really think that's what I want to work on extremely hard for the next few years, to try and get as many of these stores open. And I think that's really what I want my legacy to be. I got to work on it. You know, it's not there yet, but I really think we should have like thousands of these stores, and I'm going to start working on that every day.
Can you go into that a little bit more? Because I think folks are hungry to hear a little bit more about the grocery stores and the schools, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that's touching on something for folks as we think about our young people going back to school.
Yeah, well, we have them in Title I middle schools and elementary schools and high schools as well now. We're also building a couple of them on HBCU campuses. A lot of people don't know that about 70% of HBCU students are food insecure, that the meal plan often is sometimes like, yeah, I'm a HBCU graduate. I mean, I remember, you know, Fried Chicken Wednesdays was my day, like, you know, but I remember in hindsight, not thinking like, gosh, how many ramen noodles did I eat? That was so unhealthy, you know, but that's back when they used to be like 10 for $1, and now they're like 4 for $1. So inflation is killing us, but.
No, they're like 59 cents for one pack.
Oh my God, 59 cents?
It's pricey.
Oh wow. I did see Kool-Aid for 3 for $1 the other day, and I was mad about that, because that used to be 10 cents and 7 cents.
Where's the world gone?
I'm getting upset.
We are now those old people that we heard growing up. That's us now.
I'm getting
I
upset.
remember when Coca-Cola was $5.
Am I one of those older people? I remember like the penny gums and everything. Like, it's just, I feel bad for us, because we'll never be able to give our kids $1. Like, even the Dollar Tree isn't $1 anymore. You know, even the Dollar Tree isn't $1 anymore. It's sad. But you know, we opened our first store last year, and a celebrity client had reached out wanting to do something for back to school, and I said, you know, everybody does backpacks and school supplies. Let's do something that's really sustainable. And at Gooder, what we say is that hunger is not an issue of scarcity, it's a matter of logistics. And we say that because we're wasting so much food. So our vantage point is not that we should produce more food. I think we should make food more affordable, but also that all the food that's going to waste, we should get it to people instead of it going into landfill. And so we opened our first one last year. The school was a former failing school. It was an NF school. 67% of the kids in that area live in extreme poverty. And, you know, 100% get free breakfast and lunch at school. And so what we did is we gave every kid in the school the same reusable grocery bag with like a hoodie or a t-shirt or just different things in it, so that we erased the stigma of if any kid was ever seen with the bag, right? And we put toiletries, household items, things that parents cannot buy with food stamp benefits, plus food that kids could prepare. So we have like little Benihana's meals in there. We have, you know, pot pies, hot pockets, but we have the whole vegan section. We have like fish sticks and fish sandwiches, waffles, things under the guise that if your mom is working 2 or 3 jobs and you at 13, which is really happening all over America, right here as well, right? A 13-year-old is very well taking care of
Even
a
their
6 and
siblings,
a
yeah.
4-year-old as well. So we needed to have like the Stouffer's lasagnas. So the store has a freezer section. It does have fresh meats, fruits and vegetables, vegan options. Again, dignity. We're really about dignity. Like people deserve to get food not in a box. They need to be able to go in and say, this is what I need. I can't do, dairy. I need lactose milk, or I need oat milk or almond milk. Like we really focused on that. And I remember when the story first went viral last year, I just posted a picture of like the shelf stable section, and people were like, oh, she's got Pop-Tarts and she's got all this. They didn't see everything else yet. But I said to them, like, we're feeding kids. Like, would we rather not feed them? Like, that's the reality of it. And the store it's no questions asked. The kids can get a grocery bag worth of food, and we do that, again, for the stigma. They can go back as often as they want, but we don't want them leaving out with like 3 and 4 bags. Because then it looks like, okay, what are they leaving out with 3 or 4 bags? If they have one, that could very well be their gym clothes. You never know what's in it. So they could go as often as they want. It's open during the school year and school hours. So typically 1 hour before class, 1 hour after class, and kids can go and parents can go. And this year we did make it available to staff and teachers as well, because we know a lot of times they struggle, and it's going really well. We also have one in a senior home. So we have one in a low-income senior home that's it's I guess rent income based, so they pay like 30% of their income in their rent, and that one we learned a lot about because it was empty the first 2 days. So they took everything because I think they didn't understand it was always going to be there. So with them, we had a limit, like they could come once a week because they were coming every day. I think the thing we forgot is that they literally sit in the house all day. So the senior grocery store we learned a lot about, but it's going well. And so now we opened 3 with the mayor of Denver, which is going really well. So that was kind of his legacy project. Memphis, Tennessee, Birmingham, Alabama, Jackson, Mississippi. So we're really trying to focus on like the areas where hunger is really prevalent.
Right.
We're also opening a couple of them in New York with Diddy and his Capital Prep charter schools. So really, it's just a new way of thinking. Like, can kids address food insecurity in their households and really help their parents? And the parents come as well. And they stock up. And so it goes really well. And we clear it out every year. So at the end of the school year, the kids take everything and then we restock it the next school year. So it's great. And you guys, it's a gooder grocery store, and would encourage anyone to look it up. They're going really good.
That's impressive. Yes, worth looking at for sure. Sarah and Kate, do we have time for another question from the audience? I just wanted to gauge.
We do. I believe we
Okay.
have time.
Okay.
How can donors find Black-led nonprofits to donate to?
Great question.
Contact the community foundation and ask them. Hampton Roads Community Foundation.
Well, that was easy, wasn't it?
Vivian, take a bow.
Any other ways in addition to that, or is that that pretty much sums it up?
There are a few people in the community that are leading different associations and groups to connect with different Black nonprofits in the area. So maybe do a Facebook search and see if you can find their Facebook pages and their groups and join them, and then you can get connected that way.
And I'm sure there's some Black-led nonprofits in the building tonight that would be happy to
Please
take
raise
any
your
donations.
hand. Are you a Black-led
Yes.
nonprofit? I see a number of them.
Donate
So
to
let's
all of
meet
them.
the individuals who are here. Let's connect the dots.
Yeah, your community leaders and people you respect in your community as well, always a good stopping point for that.
Awesome, awesome. Did we have another question from the audience?
We do.
Okay, perfect.
So philanthropy includes more than just giving money. People talk about time, talent, treasure, and testimony. And the question is, how can we better honor or display the time portion, the volunteer portion of philanthropy?
Great question. Not all at once.
Find an organization in your area that, I say research them. Research all the nonprofits in your area where you can be close to and say, hey, after work or on the weekend, I want to support a cause. Reach out to them. And like she said, I like data cause. And maybe you can volunteer for different organizations, not just one, but find multiple organizations in your neighborhood that you can invest your time in, and maybe take friends with you. Take more people and say, hey, we're going to do this together. Let's go volunteer over the weekend.
So I want to, go ahead, please.
No, I just wanted to quickly say, also you can look for ways to add value. One of my hobbies is photography. And sometimes I show up to stuff and they don't have a photographer, and so I just become the photographer, and I just send them the photos. Like we were at my daughter's kindergarten graduation, and nobody had a camera, so I took photos and sent it to them. So a lot of times you might be good at computers or building websites or something, and you can use that. These nonprofits, trust me, they are looking for help with that type of stuff, and so that's a good starting point.
Awesome.
I also think nonprofits do really well if they put a needs list on their website and on social, and then just see what comes out of it. Because the same thing, I'm helping a nonprofit right now, and their website had like all the things that they needed. It's a group home for kids, but I wanted to get the kids, it's a group home, so I want to get them luggage, and then being able to go to their website and just see all the things that they need. So if nonprofits do that, I think that's a great opportunity as well to welcome in-kind donations.
Did you guys hear that?
Don't always have
If you haven't, if you don't already have it,
a needs
get your
list.
needs list and add it to your website.
And create a wish list on Amazon and just post it on social media. You know, sometimes I've seen people have that in their Instagram bios and, sharing it out there. Making sure that you're really active around like giving days. So I don't know if I know in Georgia there's like Georgia Gives Day. I don't know if Virginia has that, but like making sure that you're really active around those days and planning a campaign around it. And that's where you can get people just from an hour standpoint. I used to ask when I was crowdfunding for Gooder, and I was not successful in crowdfunding. I tried to raise $25,000 in 2017. So 5 years later, I get to this 8 million, but I couldn't raise 25,000. And I remember what I did at one point is I asked all my friends just to post it. So that's the thing. So your needs list, and then kind of need things that you could do. So like things that you can receive, but things that just don't take anything but a share. Can you share this flyer? Can you share this? And the last thing I think that I was not privy to until probably the last 3 or 4 years is a lot of the corporate giving that's happening right now. I think a lot of corporates are like empowering because they're trying to compete and they're trying to get people to work for them. Now they're like giving them volunteer days. They have ways that people can corporate give as a corporation to certain causes. So like that's where you can ask your friends who work at some of these bigger corporations, like, how can I get funding from your organization?
Awesome. Those are all great. Great suggestions. Thank you, guys. Now, one question I have, if you guys were able to volunteer full-time, right? Like you didn't have to raise money for your own organizations or do all of the amazing things that you guys do. If you were able to volunteer full-time, what would you do?
On with seniors all day. Like I'm playing bingo,
Awesome.
All that kind of stuff. I'm 100% with the seniors and listening to their stories and watching Westerns and having a good time. So that's what I would do. Okay, awesome.
I think I would bounce back and forth between my seniors and my little kids. I love how a 3-year-old can tell your perspective that someone else has, and we did not see it that way, but they see it that way in their little eyes, and that's so cute.
Entrepreneurship and economic empowerment for me, because it's something I get asked about all the time, but I'm really running a business, and the thing I don't have right now is time. So I would love to be able to, just help people start a business and grow a business.
Awesome. Were there any other questions that we have from the audience? Awesome. So I'll ask my new last question. Thank you very much, Doctor. So I want you guys to be, you guys have already talked about innovation, whether you directly mention innovation or not, right? But being very intentional and innovative with your approach to how you do the work that you do. Can you speak a little bit more to the role that innovation plays in your organizations and philanthropy overall, And is there opportunity, this is like a two-part that I'm making up as we go, right? Is there opportunity for our nonprofit organizations to be more innovative in their efforts and also how they seek out resources? That was like a 5-part question, guys, sorry. Choose whatever part of that you can remember. I don't have it on paper.
I feel like as nonprofit leaders, you have to be innovative every day in your approach. And getting volunteers, you have to help that person see your mission. And getting people to donate, you need someone to touch on their heartstrings so that they would donate. So you have to kind of change up your approach so it can be relatable to that person. And I do a lot of educational enrichment within the schools. So a lot of people say, hey, I want to do things with students. I want to do things with children, but I don't know how to get in the schools, or I don't know how to form that relationship. But I'm sure someone knows someone who has a parent in a PTA or someone who's a teacher. And think about how you can form that relationship to navigate your way to still meet your cause. So you have to just think outside of the box on, hey, this is my mission, but what's a different avenue that I can execute my mission so that I can still have an impact on whatever group I'm trying to have an impact on.
Awesome.
I think we have the perfect example of innovation in the nonprofit world right here, so I'll let her answer that.
Yeah, innovation, I'll talk about it from a technology standpoint, because I was not a technical founder, and now I have a technology company that's moving food every day. And it's a two-part business model. On one side, we have hunger solutions. On the other side, we have food waste. But even when I was really small, and I mean a small company, not a small person, but when I was a small company, I always thought I wanted to be like the big companies. And so I was using like HubSpot and Salesforce and all the free tools. And I taught myself everything I could about hunger and about food waste. And I would, I was going to startup school. It's literally called Startup School on YouTube. It's like a old series from Y Combinator, and like all Mark Zuckerberg teaches a class. And this is on YouTube, and he's literally talking about like how to find your customers, how to value your customers. And I was like taking these stories in, and there's a ton of free resources. We are literally in the information age, and I don't think people realize that. I talk to so many nonprofits that don't have an Amazon Smile account. I'm like, listen, it doesn't sound like a lot, but getting 0.5%, if you got 0.5% of my Amazon orders during this past pandemic, you would be up, take like just the small things that are out there. So trying to figure out what are you using your lead list? Are you sending email lists out? Are you sending innovative content out? How often are your donors meeting the people that they're supporting? Are you getting testimonials? The things that you can do by yourself, the things that can you spend some time on learning how to use TikTok? I definitely haven't had the time yet, but I want to, right? Because I've seen, the most popular person on TikTok right now was a former fast food worker. And now he's like a multimillionaire, a young Black Senegalese kid who just learned how to create on TikTok and make things that were funny. There is a lot of opportunity out here, and I don't want us in the nonprofit space, because we're so focused on the cause, not to think about innovating. So, get on YouTube, get on Google, tweet, search, look at these hashtags, figure out what's going on, have a story about it. If there's a way that you're supporting, I love that you talked about Black maternal health. That's huge. And there's a lot of stuff out there about it online right now. So there could be a creator that could do an Instagram live chat with you about Black maternal health. It doesn't have to be as hard as I think we once thought it was, where it's like, how are we going to get them to come? And now you could just go on live with someone right now. You can start a podcast. You can become a thought leader for your cause and from your house. And we saw that over the past 2 years when we weren't going nowhere. Right. Like, this is where all of this started. So use the resources that are out there. And I'm happy to give you guys more, but there's tons.
No, I think that's a lot. So even someone today, when you walk out of here, maybe it's an opportunity for you to do a quick live, right? And talk about Black maternal health or Black Philanthropy Month 2020. Please use the hashtag and share your thoughts from today. So thank you. Thank you all for sharing that. I do have one new final question. This is the real final one. What does Black philanthropy mean to you? So for each of our panelists, please share what Black philanthropy means to you.
I would say it just means helping your community. That's all it means to me. Like, we're multifaceted. We have various needs, and there are various ways that there are things that you as a singular person can do. And stop looking at it like all these other people have to do it. You can make a change in your own community yourself. And I think, like I said, it always starts with that need. What pricks your heart, what makes you emotional, what makes you angry, and just start there. So Black philanthropy to me means just helping your community.
I agree. It means to understand the barriers that are going on in the Black community and seeing how you could use your resources and your network to make it work and to overcome some of these barriers and help other people in the community as well.
Those are great. I would just say it's like a village. I think that's what I think about. It's like the village trying to move us forward.
Awesome. Could you guys join me in giving a huge thank you to our panelists? They've done a phenomenal job. You guys are doing phenomenal work that you should all be proud of. And keep the hand going for yourselves, because I know so many of you are philanthropists and nonprofit leaders in the audience, so thank you for all that you do. And so at this time, I would like to welcome up a board member from the Hampton Roads Community Foundation, Mr. Lim Lewis. Please give him a hand as he comes.
Good evening. I am Lim Lewis, and I am a member of the board of directors of the Hampton Roads Community Foundation, and I'm also a very proud founding member of the Visionaries for Change, and what a wonderful organization. I am standing in this evening for Debbie DeCroce. Debbie is at home. By the way, Debbie is our president and CEO. And unfortunately, she's at home. She has COVID, okay, but she's recuperating nicely, and she sends her greetings. First, I would like to thank this wonderful panel for such an engaging and informative discussion. I was following you quite well until you got to the part of old people, okay? I've always operated under the premise that age was a function, basically, of how you thought about it, okay? But obviously, I've heard something slightly different tonight, and we can maybe talk about that after. But on a serious note, Jasmine, Kendra, and Randy, it is truly invigorating to hear your stories and your experiences, and thank you so much for sharing them with us. Our community, and Aaliyah, thank you very much for being a moderator. Great job. Our community has always had a strong tradition of giving and sharing, and based on what we have heard tonight, we have a very positive future. And last but certainly not least, I would like to thank you, our guests, for taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us this evening. We hope that you will continue to follow our progress and that you will join us in making Visionaries for Change an even greater giving force in our community. This concludes our program for this evening. Please drive safely, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you. Let's give them another applause. Thank you so much.